So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the session. I welcome you all to our ManageEngine OpManager Plus free training season 1. So before getting into our session, to introduce myself, who am I? I'm Arun Raj. I'm a product expert with ManageEngine ITOM, and I will be your presenter today for the session. So our schedule is spread across 5 weeks, and we are in the final week of our training session. And it takes place at 6 a.m. GMT and 11 a.m. Eastern time. So we're already, like in the previous sessions, we would have covered the details about basic network monitoring and management, and also advanced IT operations management. In our today's session, it's going to be a detailed information related to application and user experience monitoring, with which we will be covering the full stack observability using OpManager Plus. We have our panelists available with us in our meeting today. So at any point of time, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it on the chat panel, and our panelists would be happy to assist you on the same. So let's get into our topic of the day, application and user experience monitoring. So it has the below agenda where we will be discussing in detail on how we are going to bridge the gaps between two major teams in the IT operations, the application operations team and the network operations team. So we need to understand a detailed visibility across each and every layer of your network as well as your application infrastructure in our today's session. And we will also discuss in detail how we can gain some in-depth application performance monitoring using OpManager Plus, and adding to it, not only from the infrastructure and application layer, but what about the digital experience? How we are going to address the digital experience track in the current IT scenario, and how we can accelerate the resolution using the incidents, using the automations with the help of OpManager Plus. I believe, like in the previous sessions, the previous training series, you would have already understood how the infrastructure layer has been tracked and utilized with the help of OpManager Plus. The network devices, the physical servers, the routers, network configurations, firewall. So the complete network area is already covered, but still there is a huge landscape which is untouched and which is very crucial for any business organization. That's going to be the application performance. So we will be discussing in detail how we are going to bridge the gap between these two layers with the help of OpManager Plus. Let's take a simple scenario here, like a trading applications. So most of us would have engaged in online trading, and everyone would have an experience with an application where we look for all the stocks and trading options. So let's say one fine day at one morning, we are facing some heavy slowdown during peak hours of the transactions. Will it be a happy morning? Not at all. Similarly, a lot of slow transactions that takes place across your trading application is definitely going to be time consuming and financial breakdowns. So what are the pain areas, like when a critical application like this fails or doesn't function properly? What are all the pain areas that we'll be overcoming in our regular IT organization? It's going to be the network jitter and the micro outages, how they are affecting the specific transaction within your trading platform. When you want to troubleshoot the problem, so you approach the network team gonna pinpoint it's a problem on the application. So you go and check the same with your application team, they're gonna pinpoint it's something wrong with the network layer. But how do we get the source here? How do we get to the pain areas? How we can resolve this? So these are all some pain points. At the same time, not only being a front-end user, we will definitely lack visibility across all the background transactions. What are all happening in the background is something very crucial. So as I said earlier, if it's going to be a trading application or let it be an e-commerce site, it involves investments, right? It involves money. where the financial risks are there due to delayed transaction and potential losses high in stake in the trading scenarios, even on your e-commerce purchases. So how are we going to get this addressed? With the help of network aware application performance monitoring, or we can say it as application aware network performance monitoring as vice versa. So how does it works with OpManager Plus? Within OpManager Plus, we do have a module which allows you to track the detailed components of your application layer under the displayed modules, where you can see applications monitoring as a part which can be enabled and utilized on your OpManager Plus. So this applications monitoring takes care of the unvisited landscape or the untouched landscape, which is huge and crucial for all the business environment. If you look into an IT operations team, they'll definitely focus only on the infrastructure layer, but this infrastructure is predominantly dependent on the application segment as well. So how are we going to identify this? So there are different scenarios which we need to focus on, right? Which includes the visibility across different stacks within your IT organization, starting from your network discovery, the infrastructure discovery, and other components like different services, applications, interconnected database servers, middlewares, which are running as a middleware portion between your application and the end users, and then the actual platform. If you look into the recent days, it's not only an on-prem data center, but it's also an hybrid data center, right? We are completely into a fully hybrid mechanism where you have the on-prem servers in place, the on-prem data centers in place. At the same time, you also have your hybrid infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure in place. So you need to have a relationship between the on-prem data center and the cloud data center as well. Because if you compare the on-prem and cloud, there are more similarities in terms of your network profiles as well, right? You have your network monitoring on your on-prem. At the same time, your cloud offers you a lot of network services. There are different applications hosted on cloud and as well as on-prem. There are different providers offering you, like DB operations on cloud. At the same time, it's available on-prem. So we need to have a correlation across this hybrid infrastructure in terms of all the segments within your IT organization. So collecting the information and correlating it alone is not going to be helpful. We need to have some automation in place, right? Getting emails and alerts are all old school way of getting notification. So current scenario opts for automation works. The work should be easily done rather than to be manually done. So these are the different scenarios that we need to keep in mind that a monitoring solution should offer you. So these segments are all available in OpManager Plus as built-in features. So you get a complete visibility across your IT stack where you can context and correlate. At the same time, you can perform automations as well. What is the first step to do this? It's going to be discovery. Already, like the previous sessions in the network monitoring and network management, they would have mentioned a lot about discovery, how it works in OpManager Plus, using the IP range, using your subnets, using the Active Directory, the usage of flow types, right? The JFlow, SFlow, NetFlow in terms of NetFlow analyzers, and how we can track the firewall log analytics using our syslogs and config logs, how wireless LAN controllers are discovered with the help of SNMP, what are all the network devices we support, how the ports are mapped, how the routers are monitored. So in our session today, we are going to understand much deeper about how we are going to track the applications, the middlewares, the containerized environment, cloud instances, and the applications running on top of all these segments will be discovered. So when we speak about the infrastructure layer, the network component is going to be on a parallel end along with the database and cloud components. So once we have the discovery done, you get a complete layered view starting from your application layer and drilling down to the data link layer as well. So you have your application as the priority on top. These application will be running on on-prem servers, or it can be hosted on cloud instances, even on containers. So these operating system platforms have interconnections with different network devices, right? It can even be a virtualized environment connected to different network switches, routers, and finally the secure gateway, the firewall, which is going to be the gate to, like secure your entire IT organization. So this is a general map view, how the discovery works, how the components, which is discovered within your OpManager Plus resembles. Auto discovery in applications monitoring of your OpManager Plus. So we auto discover the applications in your IT infrastructure. So when we do a discovery through an IP range or through a CIDR range, we'll be discovering the actual platform, the different database services, different application servers that are all connected with each other, and a dependency map gets created. With the help of this dependency, we'll be able to easily pinpoint which layer has the problem. So in terms of an infrastructure, it can be either on your database segment, it can be either on your the platform, the containers, or the operating system. It can be on your cloud instances as well. At the same time, the application servers, which is connected with each and every element which I have mentioned. How automatic discovery and dependency mapping helps an IT operations team or an application team. So it helps you to visualize application through device relationships. It helps you to visualize the application dependency flows. And we'll be able to achieve continuous discovery with the help of scheduled discoveries. We can schedule the discovery and you can keep your inventory updated, over a period of time. And it also helps you to leverage a variety of auto discovery method as mentioned through the IP range, CIDR range, VMware or vCenter based discovery can all be done. So using this dependency map and discovery mechanism, it helps us to easily understand the impact before moving your applications. What is the benefits of discovery and dependency mapping? It helps you to gain full visibility by obtaining a business view of all the application in physical, virtual, and cloud environment. It helps you to obtain a greater efficiency and improve your productivity rather than doing a manual task. With the help of automatic discovery and dependency mapping, you can have them managed in an automatic way. This dependencies helps you to decrease the mean time to repair by identifying the actual down applications where we can easily identify whether it's on the infra layer or is it on the cloud layer or it is from the virtualized layer or is it somewhere on the application segment. So this helps us to improve the performance by providing live status of the devices running and the maps which has been created with the help of dependency mapping. What is next? We discover the components. We have everything under the inventory. So what is the next role for the IT operations team to look for? So it's going to be understanding the flow. Being a user, I'll have access only to the front end. So through the user experience, I'll be accessing my applications or servers or, like the web portals, but I will never have a visibility across the background components. Let it be an on-premises asset. As mentioned, it can be a cloud service, microservices running on top of your containers, different types of containerized environment. So we will never know what are all the ongoing and the backend components that needs to be identified. But with the help of this discovery and dependency mapping, we can understand the flow of impact and we can isolate the problematic components using OpManager Plus. So if I take you into the module of discovery, so let's get into this part where we can run the discovery. We can take the discovery option through IP range, CIDR range, VM range, and we will be able to give you a complete business view mapping, which is available as a part of our discovery and dependencies. So understanding whether it's going to be an application pool or it's going to be a cloud containers, it is going to be an on-prem container, you'll be able to see the complete visibility and you can isolate the problematic components. So this mapping is automatically created once the inventory is ready with the help of your discovery process. Similarly, you have your complete dependency map with business view that is available within the OpManager Plus. I'll let you know how these discovery are going to be helpful for a proactive way of creating some dependency maps with OpManager Plus by the end of our session, because that is when we'll be covering the functionalities related to maps and the machine learning features that is available in the product. So let's get into our presentation back. So achieve a granular visibility into every layer of your network and application infrastructure. How we are going to get this achieved? So the infrastructure is kind of a huge infrastructure. As you can see, it is a mix match of different vendors. So everyone is going to be a niche player in the market and everyone has their own OEM data which can be published. So you may have a question. When the OEM offers the data to me, why do I need to invest on a solution? OpManager Plus is going to be a one-stop solution which supports multi-vendors. So you do not need to use multiple tools for your monitoring and management. Within a one-stop solution, you'll be able to support all these different technologies and you can understand the flow of impact. At the same time, take necessary precautions with the help of actions and forecasting reports that is already available within the solution. So with the help of a one-stop solution, you reduce multiple tools, you reduce multiple employees or engineers who's going to be provisioned for the tools, and you'll get a consolidated, correlated view within a one-stop solution. So within the infrastructure layer, database monitoring is very crucial for any organization that we are going to focus on application segment. So what makes the database monitoring very hard to us? The lack of visibility, the first thing, because when it comes to a database module, you'll have n number of database providers, different flavors of database servers, and n number of queries or databases hosted in it. It is definitely very difficult to identify what's the root cause of the issue. Because if I go and approach a DBA team, again, there is going to be a blame game where they will focus on blaming the application development team. And if I go and check with the development team, they're going to blame the DBA team, saying that the queries are running slow. There are a lot of deadlocks on that particular server. Even the operations team get involved here. The DB team says it's due to the server infrastructure problem. And sometimes, in terms of databases, we have a crucial challenge of the backups and recovery. Backup may not work as expected. The restore doesn't work as expected. So during this period of time, let's say a solution performs an automation to do a proper backup or do a recovery, that's kind of helpful, right? So that is how OpManager Plus can help you with these challenges. So when we speak about the database monitoring, how OpManager Plus can help you to achieve these concepts here. Like few things that we need to, like that we need help on database monitoring are going to be understand how many database servers you need to monitor. Because you may have production servers, you may have non-production servers, staging servers, UAT, and so on. So we need to understand what are all the crucial DB servers. We need to have an insight into the environment they are located in. Because if you compare an on-prem SQL database with an Azure SQL database, the performance KPIs differs. So we need to have an insight in which environment these databases are placed, or it's having the issues. So the DB server that needs your immediate attention. So how do we understand a database server is highly loaded with the help of buffer hit ratio, cache hit ratio, based on the memory usages, based on the long running queries, deadlocks, right? So these information are very crucial and very important to be monitored by a solution, and it can be achieved using OpManager Plus. We need to understand the dependence of the database server because one single DB can speak to multiple applications. So these applications can transfer n number of database to a particular DB instance. So we need to understand the actual dependencies across your database and the connected applications. In order to gain visibility across your entire database, we need to understand the response time. What causes the application to wait? What are the wait types and events? It can be lock wait, it can be session waits, it can be block sessions, and so on. Query performance. We need to understand the optimal way to execute the queries. Until and unless we know the execution time or the average execution on which database it's running, we will not be able to isolate the problem or fine tune the queries. So we need to identify the slow running queries and we have to fix them up. The database connections. So we need to always check if the DB servers are having n number of connections. And we have the privilege to terminate those connections, which can fine tune your database and increase the efficiency. Errors. We need to prevent the downtime. We need to have high availability, and tracking its availability is a mandate thing. We have to focus on identifying the errors on your database and the queries which is associated to those errors. Buffer pool usage is also one of the very key factor because with the help of buffer it ratios, cache ratios, and pool usages, we can easily fine tune our DB servers within our environment. We have to drill down to the root cause of the DB at the SQL level, at the instance level, the infrastructure level, and also the user sessions. So when we see about the SQL level, it's actually the SQL DB server. Within your SQL or your Oracle, there will be n number of instances or databases running. And these database servers will be hosted on different platforms, right? Like it can be Windows, Linux, containers, or cloud. And on all these databases, there will be live sessions, block sessions, log sessions. So these are all the different areas that we need to drill down in order to achieve a detailed tracking of your database performance. So to proactively monitor the DB backup and recovery, OpManager Plus offers you some automations like SQL jobs, which you can, like based on the backup ages, backup hours, the file, the location where it is placed, the errors, the status, we can have SQL jobs automated and we can have it fine-tuned at the earliest. Leverage the trend analysis to plan capacity in upgrades. So this point denotes us collecting the data, alerting or working on the monitoring part is alone not enough for an IT organization. The business requires some predictions, how we are going to tackle the upcoming scenarios. With the help of machine learning based forecasting and capacity planning reports, we can track the performance of your database utilization. We can plan the capacity and resource upgrades without any, hardship. And we can also get some customized reports generated for your database monitoring. So we have covered the database segment. So we spoke about how the database can be hosted. It can be hosted within your, on-prem instance, or it can be on your cloud instance. At the same time, when it comes to a cloud platform, we have to focus on our Kubernetes container because in recent days, the containerized environment is one of the widely used environment on top of your AWS or Azure or even, like virtual containers. So with the help of OpManager Plus, we'll be able to support multi-cloud architecture where we support your Amazon services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, OpenShift, Docker, and Kubernetes. How are we going to monitor these cloud providers? Do we need an agent? Not at all. So we use REST APIs. We uniquely connect with each of the providers and we will be using the APIs to collect the data from the cloud instances. So since we support a multi-vendor concept here, you do not need to have multiple tools or multiple dashboards from your OEMs You can have everything consolidated and correlated on a single pane of glass with the help of OpManager Plus. How to go about multi-cloud monitoring? Visualize application and infrastructure dependencies across your hybrid cloud infrastructure. With the help of OpManager Plus, we can understand the relationship between your resources via organizational map. Please note this organizational map because we'll come to this point once again by the end of our slides. I'll be showing you a detailed view of how organizational maps are created. We need to identify the KPIs. So the KPIs between an EC2 instance on our AWS and the Azure VM will be completely different. So we can identify different KPIs, have them published on the dashboard, track them seamlessly, and have a detailed visibility across your cloud infrastructure. At the same time, we have cloud spending. You can track your cloud spending and you can understand how the resources are utilized across. So in terms of cloud spending within Amazon as well as Azure, we offer you the expenditures, what is the cloud usage, how we can identify the services within your cloud consuming more of a usage. The reason we move to a cloud in order to cut short the investments, right? Rather than spending for your machines and resources, we are going to pay only for the used services. But what if the services are consuming high usages? We need some drill down and we need some alerting on the same, right? Let it be your Azure or AWS, we'll be giving you the spend by services with which we can get timely alerts and notifications once it reaches any dedicated baselines. So we have a good discussion about the database monitoring and how it impacts the cloud infrastructure. So the major topic for today is going to be the application monitoring. How we are going to gain some insight about in-depth application performance monitoring. Let's take an application. Previously, we discussed about the trading application, but now let's take an e-commerce site. So everyone would have an opportunity to buy something, special to their loved ones for a special occasion. But the special occasion is going to be a special occasion for more people within the globally, right? So everyone would try to buy something on a particular special day. So let's say I'm trying to buy something for my loved one through Amazon and I'm facing some issues at the time of checkout. Is it going to be very impactful to me? Yes, it is going to be emotionally impactful. At the same time, I have invested my money and time in it, and I'll definitely be frustrated to proceed with Amazon to go on with the next order. I'll definitely swap to a different website or different application in order to place the same order and I'll purchase it. Not only that, I'll be giving some reviews which impacts the business, right? So similarly, like any application oriented platform, because in our day-to-day life, we are relying on the applications more. We make regular banking transaction via application. We are doing regular online payments. We are tracking, like everything we are online with the help of application. When these applications are critical, it impacts the user. And not only the user, it actually impacts the business, losing the customer and losing the revenue. So what we need to do, we need to take precautions even before the end user reports the problem. What if my DevOps team fix it with ease? How are we going to achieve that with OpManager Plus? In OpManager Plus, we offer you APM Insight, which takes care of the complete application performance in a detailed way where you can identify the code level impacts. How does this APM Insight works? APM Insight is going to be an agent-based module which is applicable for your web applications built on different frameworks. So the application agent will be deployed on your app server, and with the help of bytecode instrumentation, the agent collects the transaction details of your application. What are transactions? Starting from accessing my application to the login, performing different operations inside my application and checking out or logging out is considered to be different transactions. Each and every operation I do on my application is going to be a transaction. How APM Insight can help me with a meaningful information, what I need, what the organization needs. There are 5 golden metrics you need to look for, especially the data throughput of your application, the request that hits your application, what is the response time taken by your application, is there any errors or the error percentage that has achieved over a period of time, and what are all the exceptions. So these are all the 5 primary metrics. Once we have visibility across these areas, it's very easy for you to fine tune your application promptly even before the end user reports the problem. How does this helps us? Capturing the response time helps you to understand the load of your application. APM Insight tells you, is there any buggy code? Any exceptions are there? Is there any stack trace for those exceptions? Can be easily identified. Memory leak is one of the crucial parameter for an application to go flop, and the database segment, because your application is connected to a database or it'll have a middleware portal involved in it and a lot of external calls and APIs involved as a part of your application transaction. So what do we offer? We do offer you a detailed top to bottom application monitoring. So rather than getting into this presentation, let me take you to the UI to walk you through how application performance works with OpManager Plus. With the help of APM Insight module, you'll be able to drill down a detailed view of your application layer. Because as I said earlier, application is built up of different segments: front end, back end database, background API calls or background methods, different types of external calls. So according to Gartner, a developer spends around 22 hours a week to identify the problem. What if my solution gives you the problem with the help of stack tracing, giving you the line of code, identifying this is the pain area, this needs to be fixed. So it makes the work easier for the DevOps team. Rather than getting into a reactive approach, we are focusing on the proactive approach with the help of APM Insight. So this APM Insight is supported for multiple application frameworks, which includes Java, .NET, Node.js, PHP, Python, and Ruby. So we deploy the agent on the application server and the agent does the work. It captures the data, capture all the live transaction. It offers you the detailed view in the terms of dashboards here. So once we have the application onboarded, we look for the availability of your application. Adding to it, we show you the user satisfaction with the help of AppDex score. So it is a universal code which is being used across all the application performance tracking, and it is hard coded into the solution. It's based on the total number of requests and the response time that has been captured. So with the help of AppDex score, I can easily understand how my application is performing, the response time, the total requests, the data throughput in and out, and the exceptions, right? So we give you a detailed breakdown in which layer the problem is happening. Is it on the application code? Is it on the PostgreSQL, the database, or it's going to be the external calls as well? So this detailed insight helps you to understand how the transaction and how your application is functioning. So I mentioned something related to the transaction earlier, right? Each and every operation you perform on your application is considered to be a transaction. You get to know a detailed view about all these transactions. You can actually mark them as key transaction and you can have a separate view for it as well. And along with this transaction, you'll be having background calls tracked, background calls captured. So you'll be able to identify, is there any, like authentication, the background authentication or background API calls are running. We'll be able to drill down the error transactions like 404, 500. We can drill down each and every transaction that runs on your application. Will I be able to see only the transaction, like what is critical, what is the response time? No, we offer you a detailed view called as tracing. In current day, tracing is one of the primary concept of observability, which is available in OpManager Plus APM Insight. So with the help of tracing, you can deep dive into the components, the methods, the calls that have been invoked during a period of time. It's going to give you hundreds and thousands of lines. So you'll be having a question. Do I need to manually scroll down here and I have to look these data? I would say no, because the solution offers you the suspected slow metrics, which you can enable and deep dive into the components which requires attention. It makes the work easier for you here by highlighting the components which needs to be fine-tuned. I want to drill down into my queries because I do see there are 236 DB queries. Yes, you can very well see those details, how it is getting executed, which query is taking time. And I can see there are exceptions on my transactions. So on which thread ID, on which thread it's happening, what are all the external calls? It can be an HTTP request, it can be a PG or the database request. We'll be easily able to understand that. And the exception tab within your trace tells you what type of exception it is, whether it's fatal, and what is the stack trace for it. You can drill down your JVM usages as well, covering your heap memory, non-heap memory, garbage collectors, threads, and so on can all be monitored from APM Insight. Once we have the memory leaks addressed, definitely the performance of your application will spike up, right? And the dedicated exception tab, which allows you to look into all your exceptions and drill down to the stack trace and get into the problematic components. Once we have those details available, it's easy for the team to fine tune it accordingly. And the important thing is going to be the service map. Service map is an automatic feature which allows you to understand how your application is sending data, like the connected dependencies. It can be a web portal HTTP call or it can be a database call. If I find it's going to be critical, I can just drill down into this request. I can see how many failed requests are there, what are all the transactions related to that request. I get into the transaction. I will look for my traces of the transaction and I can deep dive, further and further until I get into the problematic components. So this is how APM Insight helps you to identify your application insights. Even before your end user reports the problem, we can drill down deeper into it and we can identify the issues. If your application is having a distributed architecture speaking with one another, then we'll be capturing distributed tracing as well. And I would like to show you one more analytics tab, which is called as RUM Analytics. This is one of the key factor. When you have the same application tracked as a user experience monitoring via digital experience, then we'll be giving you a correlation in terms of RUM Analytics. So here you're getting detail related to an individual application monitoring, but we have a dashboard, an observability dashboard, which I will be showing you when we are discussing about the maps in our upcoming slides and um, the topics. So this is the business dashboard I was speaking about. I'll show you the live dashboard, how an application and user experience correlate and get displayed on your OpManager Plus. So we discussed about the application layer. And now we are going to step into digital experience. So when we speak about digital experience, it's going to be the front-end facing applications. The user may be accessing the application on a web portal. So definitely through a website, right? So when they are accessing the website, they may come across different issues and scenarios. The website may not load. The login will not work. They may be putting a registration which may not work out. So there are different scenarios, right? The registration fails or the landing page fails, or if I log into the page, the login doesn't work. It goes to a request timeout session. So these are all different scenarios that we face as an end user. So when an end user is frustrated, it's definitely going to impact the business, as I have mentioned earlier. With the help of OpManager Plus, as an IT operations team, we are going to take care of the network segment, the infrastructure segment, the database segment, your on-cloud segment, and even your application code segment. But let's say a user calls you up and reports you that I cannot access the website. So it's definitely a key area that we need to cover, right? We need to have visibility on our end users as well. So in order to do that, the first level of tracking digital experience is going to be website monitoring. So what metrics do we need to prioritize? The availability of your website URLs, the certificate expiries of your websites. Is there any content changes on your website? What is my page score? Is my web page score very less? Do I need to do any changes or any fine tuning? And does my website have any, like malicious attack? Some malware is in it, some phishing is there. So these are all some primary criteria that we need to keep in mind when it comes to a front end website monitoring. What would be the cause of website slowness? The first thing is going to be the load. During a Black Friday sale, definitely your web page will report 404 error. So some load on your website, the traffic, the user, it's definitely impacts your website. Or it's maybe due to the actual application server performance, which we identified with APM Insight, right? And the server monitoring, which we discussed earlier. So it may be due to the server performance, or it can be some unwanted hacking attempts, like some suspicious attempts that has been done on your website. So how are we going to fix them up? How are we going to handle them up? The website URL monitoring helps us to understand the availability of your URL. It helps you to track the health of your URL by different metrics: response time, connection time, DNS time, first byte, last byte, error rate, page size changes, and so on. So let's say I want to track a sequence of my URL transactions. Will I be able to do for a basic URL? Yes, we offer you URL sequence. You log into a URL, you provide some information, you add a product into your checkout list, and you make a payment. And you want to track this step-by-step sequence for a front-end basic level monitoring? Yes, we can use the URL sequence monitoring to achieve that. And in terms of content changes, there are different contents, right? Elements, scripts, images, which can be defaced. So monitoring your website content helps you to check the website integrity and check the website tampering. From OpManager Plus, we have these website content monitoring, which can be achieved within the application performance monitoring module. And adding to this, we also be offering you the SSL certificates. From which domain, from which URL the certificate has been listed. When you're adding a website monitor, you get to add your SSL certificates, the DNS, the web page, brand reputation. So everything gets added along with it when you're adding your basic website URL for your monitoring. So this is the first level, right? Like the basic level of tracking your website and its usages. This is completely agentless. We use HTTP and HTTPS protocols to connect to your websites and monitor the details accordingly. And we'll be also offering you page speed insights with the help of Google Score, which allows you to look into the problematic components of your web pages. And with the help of recommendation, we can fine tune them. So this is the first level, but digital experience monitoring involves more insights within your application layer. What is much needed for a digital experience monitoring? There are two components within OpManager Plus applications monitoring: real user monitoring and synthetic transaction monitoring. Real user monitoring is completely a live user experience tracking, whereas synthetic transaction monitoring is the commonly known word. In OpManager Plus, we use it as real browser monitor because most of the transactions are browser-based transactions. We'll be capturing them. So synthetic transaction is going to simulate the transaction that happens on your website. Real user monitoring is something live, which we collect data based on the user experience, user accessibility. Whereas synthetic transaction does not involve a user, but it can simulate a sequence of steps that is going to be performed on your website. We know a flow of our transaction. The first thing, I load my website, Second thing is going to put in my login credentials. Third thing is I'm going to surf my website. I'm going to navigate to multiple tabs, go to a checkout page, do the payment, and I log out. So this is a known sequence. I'm a website owner. I have made a lot of enhancement on my website and I'm going to publish it. So before publishing it, I want to test it out 24 hours. I will not be sitting in front of my system and I'll be doing the testing, whereas I will simulate the sequence and I will leave it under the monitoring where it can easily identify the problematic pages, the transaction time of the pages across different geolocations, and we can get some insight. Whereas real user monitoring capture the live user action. I don't need to simulate anything. I can just capture my real user transactions and I can get to know how my websites are performing and my users are performing. In both the scenarios, you'll be able to view performance across different geolocation. Let's quickly jump into the UI. I would like to show the real user experience first. Real user experience monitoring is also an agent-based monitoring. You deploy the agent on top of your application server or any dedicated server within your network, which is accessible by the app server as well as the OpManager Plus instance. This involves JavaScript injection. We offer you a JavaScript which needs to be injected on your application file. You'll have a question, do I need to make any code changes? Not at all. This JavaScript is going to stay on a static HTML file, which is going to be a header file or it's going to be a footer file. And it depends upon different framework application. There are index.c.html files. So there are different files available. So these are going to be static and your JavaScript is going to stay there and it's going to collect the data at the browser level because your users access your website over the browser and this JavaScript tag collects the information about your users based on AppDex score, how your users are satisfied, the response time of your website, the page views, what is the total page views has been done, what is the error count, how many errors have been addressed so far. So you give a detailed map, a geolocator map, and you can identify and track usages based on response time, page views, and error counts. Will I be able to drill down deeper into my country? Yes, you can. So let's get into, like a map. You'll be able to drill down into the state level details, which is going to be impactful, how your user are experiencing. What do I need to do in order to achieve these details? You will be having a prerequisite of getting a geolocator API. Once it is added into the tags, you'll be able to get the geolocator data like geographic data, and you will also be able to view the ISP details. What is the total request on this particular ISP? What is the response time of a particular ISP? Because when a user reports a problem, with the help of this information, I can inform him that something wrong with your ISP. It's not on the application part or on the infrastructure layer. Not only the geographical location and ISP, we can drill down to the browser layer. When I say browser, normally we access applications through a web browser. We may sometimes go handy by using a mobile browser. So we can identify from which device or from which browser the issues are happening, which type of users, whether he's a mobile user or it's a desktop user who's having problem, on the browser types. There are times we have incompatible browsers not supported by the application and people will be still using it and they'll be reporting the problem. We can advise them that this is an unsupported browser with the help of real user monitoring. So we can understand the device type. Identifying the right customer is very important to, like provide a solution in terms of performance insights. So it can be mobile device users, website, web-based desktop users, Windows or Mac users. We can drill down the total counts, the response time and throughput of your application from here. And we'll be also tracking the web pages. What are all the web pages? What is the usage of all those websites? What is the satisfaction rate? What is the first time? the last byte, response time, connection time, render time, and how many page views have been done on that particular page can all be sorted out. We will be giving you a detailed information about your users. You can see the username, the browser on which your users are connected, the device on which your users are accessing, from which country, how many pages they have navigated, how long they have been viewing that particular website. So when I get into a particular user details, I can see what are all the web pages they have navigated and what is the satisfaction rate of my particular user. Adding to these information, you will get some performance insight like Ajax calls. Let it be a single page application. It'll trigger a lot of Ajax calls. So you can track those Ajax calls as well. And we can even identify the JavaScript errors that occurs on your website. You'll be able to see the type errors, you'll be able to see the file errors, pages, like all the different types can be seen from here. You'll be able to get the stack trace of each errors. So this helps us to easily isolate and identify the problem in terms of user layer. So this is how it helps us. When you have APM insight and real user monitoring combined together, right? Let's say I'm monitoring application A with APM insight for code level monitoring, and the same application A is monitored in terms of user experience. You get a observability dashboard from OpManager Plus, which is going to give you a complete correlation here, where you can see the application insight and the user experience. If you can see the similarity, this application seems to be completely fine at the code level, but the users, there are around 10% still tolerating the use case. So it may be due to, the request, or it may be due to the browser, the failed platform. And here you can see what are all the errors, the queries, transactions that is impacting at the application level. And you get the summary report of your geographical locators. So this is one of the advanced element that we are offering in OpManager Plus, which helps you to correlate both your application segment and also your real user segment. So we discussed about the user experience. So now let's get back to the synthetic transaction. So when I say synthetic transaction, as I have mentioned earlier, we'll be, having the playback scripts with the help of Selenium scripts, and we'll be performing some transactions in a simulated way. So these transactions will give you some details like, the step-by-step page load time, how long it is taking to, like respond from one page to another, what is the transaction time, all those information will be listed here. Along with this, you'll be capturing the screenshots of each and every web pages that has been navigated. Let's say if the page fails from the page 1 to page 2, there will be an error on the website page, right? That website page will be taken as a screenshot and it will be sent as an email alert to you. So you'll easily identify on which transaction the failure has occurred. Along with this, we'll be offering you some real-time waterfall model based on different resources, response code, and the latencies or the connection time, which is achieved for your synthetic transaction. Synthetic transaction is also an agent base. We deploy an agent on any dedicated machine within your network, and we'll be doing a playback script. We will record the steps to be monitored and it will be simulated accordingly. So this is how digital experience is achieved with the help of OpManager Plus applications monitoring. So now let's get into the general feature, because we started with discovery of different components in terms of application oriented infrastructure. We discussed in detail about the database performances and how we can achieve it on your cloud infrastructure. And we had a detailed discussion on APM insight to get the code level insight and digital experience monitoring. Monitoring has been done, observability has been covered, but what type of automations can I get from OpManager Plus? You'll be able to get automation with workflow. You can create your own workflow and you can have them automated on top of your OpManager Plus. Let's say there is going to be a critical severity in terms of your utilization, or there is going to be some cloud-based operations to be done. You can very well perform it with the help of predefined operations like restarting your VMs or containers, performing some workflow to fine tune your utilization, your resources allocations, etc. can be taken care. And you have a detailed view which can be created with OpManager Plus. We had a few discoveries done from the previous training sessions, right? Network-based discovery, application-based discovery, cloud-based discovery, layer 2 map discovery in OpManager Plus. What does these discoveries help us with will amaze you, because we have a feature called as organizational map, which gets created automatically based on all these discoveries that we do, based on your layer 2 discovery, your network discovery, the dependency mapping via applications monitoring, and the switch port mappers that we are going to utilize within OpManager Plus gives you an organizational map. What does this organizational map does? This organizational map gives you the real-time connections, how your server, how your components are interconnected with each other. You get a detailed infrastructure layer, how it is connected with multiple database types, application server types, SQL, dynamic CRM, much more. Like it's a wide area where we are getting real-time live connectivities with the help of these dependencies. So this is how organizational map helps us in terms of your performance tracking. With the help of the discovered components that we have, we'll be able to capture these level of dependencies and how it will be helping us to have a consolidated view across your complete IT stack. So this is how OpManager Plus helps you to gain full stack observability, starting from your network devices to your infrastructure layer, the database segment, application servers, cloud components, and how we are getting a consolidated view of all these applications deployed with the help of service mapping and organizational map. And being a multi-vendor support product, it offers you a one-stop solution. It is going to be a one-stop solution supporting all the metrics and KPIs within a single suite covering the full stack observability. So as I said earlier, this is going to reduce the employee investment who is going to access multiple tools, and it's going to reduce your investment on multiple tools. Op Manager Plus going to be a full stack monitoring in a single suite. So you'll be receiving some um, polls on your chat panel. You can participate in the polls that have been triggered on your chat box. And you will also be receiving another poll area like where you can review us. So I hope the session was informative. And if there are still any questions you would like to ask, our panelists are available and they'll be happy to answer your questions. So since you have completed the entire training series so far, you can get yourself certified. You can register yourself for your training and you can get your certification done and you can become a certified Op Manager Associate. Adding to this, you can follow us on LinkedIn in order to get connected with us and get insights and information related to all the latest features and events that is going to take place related to our IT operations management. And you can also get connected with all the different social medium, like you can have our training videos available on YouTube at ManageEngine ITOM site. You can access our Op Manager website for any help or clarification. There are forums where you can post your content and get responses. You can drop an email in order for the paid support. Like if it's going to be a customer, you can drop us an email at opmanager-support at ManageEngine. If you want to trial out OpManager Plus and explore the product, please do drop us an email at eval-itom@manageengine.com. So that's for the day. I hope the session was informative. Thank you all for your patience and time with us. Until then, see you next time. This is Arun signing off.